of metal has begun, and metal shall prevail. For we know what they have done. 5 legends of our realm who sought to follow the path of their dark musings. But they did not know what they had summoned. Pentakill. To these creatures, there is but one thing left to do. Heavy metal.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the 4th episode of the world's Run Down Under. where we talk about everything worlds from a little bit of an Oceanic point of view. On this episode, we are, of course, going to be going through the quarterfinal matchups. We'll have some flash questions with our special guest. We'll then also go through the top 5 plays or moments, have a look at our featured players, featured champion, and, of course, then have our special guest again go through how to play a specific top laner. And I know that might have given away a little bit, but we are going to be revealing who it is very, very shortly. We'll then, of course, give you our predictions for the semi-finals and let you know when they are going to be. So without further ado, let us introduce our special guest. And as per usual, we have my wonderful friend and sometimes co-caster, Mr. Julian Pastry Time Car. How you doing, man?
I'm good, Max. How are you?
Oh, absolutely fantastic. And, of course, I'm more than excited to announce the fantastic top laner for Legacy Esports. It is, of course, and Minky Wild Trin. How you doing, dude?
Hi, I'm good, thanks.
That is absolutely fantastic. Oh, yeah. There he is.
The whale is here, everyone.
Oh, yeah.
It's all right.
Anyway, let us quickly jump straight into our first segment, which is going to be some flash questions, just to, get Minky Well a little bit more comfortable.
It's an icebreaker for you.
Yeah, a bit of an icebreaker. Are you excited? Are you ready?
Yeah. Just a heads up, though, I'm not quick on my feet, so...
Well, it's okay. You're sitting down. I think we're going to be okay. Quickness
right.
on your feet, unnecessary for this particular segment, and I'll take that card whenever you're ready.
After the show.
No problem. Okay, so Minky Well, first question. Who is your favorite champion?
Irelia.
Wonderful. Your most hated champion? Please say Jace.
Hemo.
Oh, fair enough.
Everyone
Favorite
hates Hemo.
player?
Chief Swiffer.
Oh, that's adorable. Your favorite drink?
Vodka. I mean...
Okay,
No, that's fine. That's more than fine.
Vodka.
And your
everything.
favorite champion named Jace? This is, of course, a question by Benji, and
Yeah.
I don't think we even need to answer
I think
it.
it's
just-
Jace, yeah?
Oh, my goodness.
Correct answer.
Hot or
Well
cold
done.
weather? Hot or cold weather?
Cold.
Cold. Fantastic choice. I hate the hot weather. Beer or pasta? Beer or pasta? That is not what I was
No.
actually going to write, but I
Although-
wrote that down as far as a question. Beer or cider, sir?
Oh, it's cider. Cider.
Cider, really?
Yeah.
Interesting. And who is going to win Worlds?
Who's going to win Worlds? Samsung White.
That is a good choice. Of course, Pawn is the best player in the history of players. That guy is incredible. Okay, I have to admit that Imp's pretty good too.
They're all pretty good, as
Yeah.
it turns out.
They
Kind
are
of the
pretty
point
good.
of that team, it seems like.
And that does lead us pretty perfectly into our next segment, Mr. Julian Pastry Time Car, which is, of course, going over our quarterfinal matches. And I want to have a look at every single game except for the first one, because the first one makes me so incredibly depressed. So let's get that over and done with first
let's
up.
start with the first one and not start
Oh.
talking about it for the rest of the show. That sounds great.
Oh my
It
goodness.
was, of course, TSM versus Samsung Light.
It was.
You should be
Oh.
happy. TSM won a game very convincingly.
They did, and that was because Samsung White chose the most disrespectful team comp that I have ever seen.
Very
First
good.
picking Cassidon, and I still think that TSM probably only won that one because they had such an incredibly successful early invade. But what do you think about the whole series? And Minky Well, I'd prefer you to let us know first. What was your opinions of TSM's
Well,
matchup?
not to take anything away from them, like they did play well, and Samsung Blue, they did a troll draft and gave a win away, but they really just didn't want to show anything coming into the next game.
Mm-hmm.
So fair enough, but yeah, it did give a bit of hope to the NA regions that the NA teams can take a game off the Korean regions, if they were given optimal conditions. So there's hope. There's hope.
I pretty much agree with Minky in the sense that TSM showed that the idea that the Koreans are so much better than the North American players mechanically is just false. Like,
Yeah.
everyone is very, very close in skill, especially compared to last year mechanically, and even strategically, their teams are much closer. Samsung White just played better on the day, played better overall, and in a best of 5, that's what matters. But it shows that if you give a team like TSM, enough room to kind of play against you, they'll crush you, and that's exactly what happens. So I think it's good for the West overall. It's definitely good for NA as a region. Obviously, White were expected to win the series, and they did so handily, still 3-1, but lots and lots of respect to TSM for just showing that, hey, we can actually beat you.
Yeah, that's true. And I think a lot of the reason why TSM struggled so much is because they rely on Bjergsen winning his lane almost every single time. And he could not do that against the likes of Pawn, who's just an incredibly good mechanical player. We saw him win over and over again, 1v1 against Bjergsen, and it's just so hard. Plus, amazing having Trouble in the jungle, of course, Dandy just being incredible around the map. I think having those two roles so far behind just was a position that TSM wasn't used to being in.
Yeah, and when Bjergsen did come into the scene, he was the best mid laner by far, and
Yeah.
he was destroying everyone in mid lane. His best champion, the Zed, was beaten twice by Pawn in the mid lane, and by 2 different champions as well. So
And it was so close. A lot of
Yeah.
those 1v1s as well. I mean, one auto attack, the difference in his Fizz versus Zed matchup. In the mid lane, I think it was bottom side brush. Not that I remember every moment of that game, like it was
Painfully.
a horrible nightmare. But yeah, no, he definitely did show that he could stand up to him, but just wasn't quite ready to pip the post just yet.
Yeah, for me, it's the team play thing. Samsung wanted just the more experienced team. TSM showed they can operate well, like a 1v1 level mechanically, but they're not quite at the strategic level that the Koreans are yet.
Yeah, but definitely showed some hope, some signs of life there. And that does move us on to our next matchup, of course, Korea versus North America yet again. But this time, of course, it is going to be Samsung Blue, Samsung putting on their blue shorts for this particular matchup, and Cloud9, of course. And Cloud9 came out of the gate so incredibly strong. This was a far different matchup from what it looked like judging by the first game, but then things seemed to crumble after that. What were your guys' impressions of how Cloud9 looked against Samsung Blue?
I really like Cloud9. They're one of my favorite teams by far, because there's lots of Asians in there.
Minky
Oh, dear.
I'm just kidding. But yeah,
seriously.
When they won their first game, I was so excited. I hope they could carry that momentum through. Unfortunately, it didn't work for them. They almost came back in the 4th game and won that. Just tiny bit short, unfortunately. But yeah, they really look like they had good form. And if they keep at it, if they keep playing like they're playing, I really think they have a good shot at next year.
And they have almost the opposite problem, to me, it feels like, that TSM had against White. And again, Blue definitely looked a lot more mortal than White did just in general in their group stage games. But Cloud9 are a team that have always played best as a team, when they came onto the scene, they were just winning every lane and Medias was like, well, I just guess I'll keep farming. And that didn't work anymore. The players got better and they started becoming easily the team with the best shot calling and the best strategic play.
And that still shined through in that match.
Absolutely, yeah. They played really, really well as a team, but again, it's an experience thing and consistency thing. They're able to beat these teams that are, arguably much, much better than them, but they can't do it consistently yet, especially in a long best-of-5 series.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And a lot of people were explaining, describing Cloud9 as sort of just an inferior Samsung Blue, just because their strategy lies a lot in the late game, out-rotating, making sure that they can take objectives.
Yeah, a little bit. For me, Cloud9 feel like much more of a mid-game team, almost a bit more like OMG, but less aggressive in some senses, where they'll play very, very safe in the early game. They'll get sneaky going in a 1v1 or a 1v0. They'll kind of play very safe, and then those first 2 dragon fights, Cloud9 will just flip the switch and wreck you in team fights and snowball from there. But they don't seem to be that good at playing from behind, although they did definitely play very well in this series from behind.
Yeah.
But they're a team that really likes to build up a big 15-20 minute advantage or keep it even and then just crush you in a team fight 5v5.
Yeah, exactly right. But they did look fantastic in the first game, of course, falling apart a little bit in the next 2. But that 4th game at the very end was just so heartbreaking.
Again, just kind of showing that NA can hang with Korea, it seems like. And it's just a matter of becoming more consistent and getting better at playing in longer series. So. And they showed up. They played really well.
And Minky, well, you've, of course, played in these massive best-of-5 series. Of course, Winter is a perfect example of that. Do you think Cloud9 were potentially suffering from a little bit of fatigue at that stage? It's the 4th game, of course. Shot calling's a little bit difficult. I mean, going over the play at the very end of that game, you saw all these things that could have potentially been changed in order to have a little bit more time. Do you sort of feel for these guys?
Yeah, definitely. The North Americans in LCS, obviously, they play 1 or 2 games a week. And so they're not really exposed to those long series that the Koreans are used to. Maybe in scrims, however, Koreans are really disciplined. So I heard they scrim 8 hours a day and non-stop. And then, they're used to those long series, whereas NA aren't. And I'm pretty sure that played a factor, definitely. Fatigue, strain, pressure, all of those, definitely.
And there's the fact that, of course, TSM have so many fans as well, and they put it all on their shoulders, sort of saying that they need to play well so that they can make everyone, feel okay and all this sort of stuff. They've got the weight of the world on their shoulders or something like that. And it's just, I don't know, it's difficult for TSM.
Yeah, it's going to be hard.
And Cloud9.
It's going to be hard on this half of the bracket for North America, but they played really well. They should both be happy with 3-1 against the Samsung teams. But yeah, it was good. But the expected teams definitely came out still.
Yeah, they certainly did, and it does give us a Samsung Blue versus Samsung White semi-final. But let's move over to the other side of the bracket. Of course, the first matchup that we want to talk about is Starhorn Royal Club
I don't know if
versus
we want to talk about this
EDG.
one, actually.
And this is sort of, we moved to the other side of the bracket. Instead of me being depressed, it is of course going to be Paige time being a little bit depressed.
I can't believe
because-
this happens again. Exactly the same story as last year. OMG
Yeah.
dominate the LPL for a year last season. They come out, they're the best Chinese team. They're killing everyone. They look like they've got a really good shot at, fighting Korea for the title. They get destroyed by Royal Club. What's going on? And then EDG, much closer. Here's the only 3-2 series of the entire quarterfinals. But
Yeah.
come on, man. Why do Chinese teams keep losing the Royal at Worlds? It's so
And
frustrating.
it didn't look like a 3-2 performance coming out from EDG as
Yeah.
well. I mean, 3-2 makes you think that the series was close, but it looked to me
And
like
it-
Starhorn just had their number almost the whole time.
Yeah. And it was close, but at the end of the day, yeah, you said just Royal looked ahead the entire time.
Yeah, and
Like
Uzi
EDG
was
didn't
playing
wanna play.
out of his mind.
Yeah, speaking of players that showed up to this tournament, man, Uzi's playing well. And Name, he's my boy. It's the guy I wanted to do so well in this tournament. He just did not play well. He won the Dade Award, according to Monte Cristo on Twitter.
Yeah, I think
which
the
is
Dade
unfortunately
Award
not a
can
very
be
good
offered,
award
yeah.
to win.
Yeah, and Minky Well, of course, the star of this whole matchup, was a lot to do with the top lane. Of course, Rise was picked over and over again. That guy just seems to be coming in massive form. What is it about this champion that's just doing things for the Chinese players especially?
Yeah, Rise is good all throughout the game. So he's quite a lane bully early. He's decent in mid with the Roll of Ages, and then late game he does so much damage and so tanky and so hard to kill because he just stacks the scales of mana, and he can build like armor and MI as well. So he's one of those champions that's dominant all throughout the game, and he's just they're not afraid of picking him.
Yeah, and is that to do with the Chinese meta not necessarily being as much about lane control? It's about baiting the Barons and having these big team fights that Rise can really excel in?
Yeah, definitely. He's super aggressive, and I think some teams are picking up like Irelia to counter the Rise in the early mid game, but Rise does like outscale Irelia by far in the late game. So they're pretty much just picking it as like one of those safe picks that will be reliable all throughout the game.
Yeah, I mean, Chinese teams, they love to fight, and Rise he's a good champion to brawl with.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Well, and he also can set up ganks really, really well for that top lane as
Yeah.
well. So you can imagine that Rune Prison going to be pretty helpful when you've got junglers like Kha'Zix running around trying to kill people, because of course that's another thing that the Chinese really like to do. It's a lot similar to our scene here in Oceania.
Yeah, it's
just
funny
fight
actually.
all the time.
But I've heard Minky say that the OCS scene loves to brawl. It kind of reminds me of the Chinese teams
Yeah.
a lot. They just want to force constant 3v3s and 4v4s and just be fighting people all the time. They don't like the split push thing. They don't like the 2v2s or anything. They like big team fights and big skirmishes. And Rise definitely fits that, and so does Kha'Zix as well. And it was a really epic series of so many kills in this
Yeah.
quarterfinal. It was just dumb.
Yeah, and Uzi was picking up the majority of
Yeah,
those as well.
so
That guy
many
was
kills.
just ridiculously on point that weekend. It was just out of control. And having Uzi who's such a, I guess, emotional player,
Yeah.
you could say. Of course, he's been
Super
around
emotional.
Reddit. Sort of, there's a few issues as far as, I guess, being a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, if you saw him at the end of
Yeah.
the fourth game that they played, he didn't get up and leave the stage to join his team. He just sat at
he
his
was
chair.
so sad.
Yeah, and then managed to rally and win game 5. So, yeah, Uzi's like a young kid. He's known for his temper in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. They call him the puppy because he's like young, but also pretty loud, barks a lot,
Mhm.
kind of gets aggressive. So, yeah, that's actually his nickname, which is
Yeah.
kind of funny. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. But, I mean, they played better overall, Royal, and they deserve the win there, despite EDG supposed to be the kryptonite for all the Chinese teams.
Yeah, exactly. So not really coming out as the China killer that EDG was supposed to be. But let's move on to our next matchup. Of course, it's going to be Korea versus China. And what the heck? OMG just showing up. Najin Whiteshield just had no idea what had hit them. These guys were playing out of control. And this is what OMG can do. They just sometimes find it in them to kill everyone forever.
Yeah, it's kind of what I said when we first came into the pre-world show we did for this
Yeah.
particular show. If OMG show up, then they're just going to roll through people. They're such a good team. They're the dark horse team for me still in the tournament.
Oh, yeah.
And they just showed that when they come to play, they destroy you. And they're good. They were the team last year. Again, they were supposed to probably be in the finals as the Chinese team at Worlds
Yeah.
that didn't make it. They play like other foreign teams do more than a Chinese team. They've got the ability to play the objectives and actually play and do split pushing. We saw a bit of that in their play as well against Najin Whiteshield. So they've got a good look potentially, given that it is going to be a Korea versus Chinese final if we get that far. But they got a pretty big opponent ahead of them. But OMG, man, just dominated. And Going's got to get pretty much full credit here. He put the team right on his back.
Yeah, exactly. And as a top laner, Minkuel, Going was just absolutely ridiculous that game. How do you carry as a top lane? We've been seeing that being an island, but this guy was all over this map.
Yeah, definitely. It was largely to the fact that Nige and White Shield actually tried like cheesy stuff, like Cassidy in the top lane, AP
Yeah.
Nidalee. It was like their own strategies that they built to beat OMG. Unfortunately, didn't work. And when you pick unconventional picks, they're unconventional because they're risky, and because they took the risk and it failed. Going was able to snowball the top lane and pretty much just win the game for his team.
And it's ridiculous because Save has had all of this amazing hype around him as being the best top laner in the world and all this sort of stuff, and just did not show up. Going was just outclassing him across the board.
Yeah, I mean, Going is like one of the few carry top laners left in the world. People are joking that he's the last one left now, which was kind of funny.
Oh my
So
goodness.
people are joking that he Highlanded Save in the top lane and now got all his power, which kind of makes sense. Like, he's the only one left, but yeah, he's always known for getting his team going, and when he gets going,
It certainly happened. He gets going.
he doesn't get going.
Oh, wow.
I set it up for you and everything.
Thank you very much there, Julian.
That was,
Fish Chunk.
I'm sorry, everyone on stream. That was actually unintentional.
I think we can share this red card. I'll just. We need to make those cards.
do.
Man. It certainly needs to happen. But let's move on to our next segment.
We
Is,
didn't
of
rip you
course,
and shot. I don't think it'll just be you flooded with cards.
oh my goodness. Let's move on to our next segment, though, guys. Is of course our top plays from the weekend, from those quarterfinals, and a lot of them are more about team fights and really big moments in these games. And man, they were exciting. There's one particular favorite of mine, which I will let you guys know. But let's jump.
We got some sweet ones. so
We
let's
do.
go.
Let's jump into our first one right away. And this is, of course, going to be TSM versus Samsung White. And I'm not going to take us through this one. Julian, take it away. I'm just going to avert my eyes.
So this is a pretty cool one. Samsung White start Dragon here. TSM get a little bit out-rotated and manage to go through. And the Dragon's been taking it. They still want to start a team fight. Amazing jumps in for the stun. And then pretty much just gets caught there. Chandra's landed a pawn. Intervention, though, perfectly used by Kale to block all that damage. And then it's just Twitch ultimate, Brom ultimate, Kale damage going in. I mean, this is a hard comp for Samsung White to execute, and they do it really well. And what ends up happening is something that happens pretty often on the Samsung White side. Imp's going to get a penta, but picks up the quadra there. This is awesome, though.
This is the best play. Misses the cripple.
Yeah, which is a bit odd, but this is just slick as. Flashes the charm, goes back in with the Q, auto attacks each time as well to make sure he does enough damage, manages to feed Imp the penta. And, I mean, Samsung White, for me, that's just another example of how good their team fighting is.
Yeah, it was just beautiful to watch. And if we have a look at this one in slow motion, look at Imp's positioning exactly where he needs to be, firing off that rat-a-tat-tat or spray and pray, depending on how old you are. And Wild Turtle does manage to get a kill here, but it's just perfect execution.
I mean, again, the intervention saving Yasuo, who got caught there, making sure he didn't take too much damage. When you line up on two big, narrow ultimates like Broms and Twitches, you're just going to take so much damage. And then the chase potential. Dandy as well, also kind of going in, zoning people off to the left to split up the fight a bit, and then safeguarding back towards Twitch. And then, of course, this play again as well. I mean, Bjergsen, he's not going to have fun right now. And that flash is just sick from Dandy.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And Dandy collects all the creeps as well so that they move towards him.
Yeah.
And he can land the Sonic Wave through. So all in all, just absolutely stunning play. And it's something that you'd expect from what's looking like the best team in Korea.
Yeah. I mean, Imp's known for being aggressive. You played pretty standard that game. Or that fight at least.
Yeah, that's just
hanging
up
back.
Standard pentacles.
Just,
fine.
well, you just smash your L button. Your team's there for you setting up. You just smash your L
Yeah.
button and you're good to go. But, I mean, his Imp is as good as he is, not just because he's aggressive and such a strong mechanical player, because his team sets up for him as well.
They certainly do. And he's a calculated and just
I
perfectly
don't know about-
executed player.
Not always.
Oh,
he
well.
he goes a little bit too hard sometimes. We've seen that already.
I think I'd like to know is with that situation, Samsung White actually had the opportunity to disengage after taking Dragon. They had Braum, they had Lee, they had Yasuo win war. They could have easily disengaged, but they recognized that they could win a team fight, so they went all in and they won it.
Yeah.
TSM really shouldn't have been there if they couldn't contest that Dragon.
Yeah, it's true. So it's just a little bit of a out position at the same time and an out calculation here by our
Just
Korean team.
complete outplay 5v5 from
All right, let's
It was a
stop
great
talking
play.
about TSM getting outplayed. It makes me really upset. So let's move on to our fourth play. Oh my goodness. And this one is, of course, going to be Samsung Blue versus Cloud9.
It's all right. We've got some NA pride in there.
Yeah.
Top 5 moments. This is a fun play.
This
So-
is my favorite.
So this is like a pretty insane mess of a dragon fight that's happening here. Dragon's attacking the entire time, by the way. It's part of the reason Blue's in trouble. Meteor pops back in, manages to basically do enough damage and kick people in that Balls can clean up the triple. And then this is one of the funnier moments, I think, from Worlds, what we've seen.
This is Sneaky
Heart.
basically saying, I choose you, Dragonite. And Dragonite just goes and
Yeah.
kills the fish for him.
And then he kills his own Pokemon, which
Yeah.
I don't know if that's supposed to be in the story, but
Yeah, well, it's pretty much Dragonite versus Seadra, and Seadra just does not stand a chance, let's be honest, if you look at the base stats alone.
But this team fight was just insane. I mean, the amount of damage Rumble managed to do there before dying, the fact that Cloud9 were able to navigate such a messy fight so well and pick up enough kills, and then have the support tanking the dragon and Sneaky there just cleaning up was just really, really well played by them. And again, show that Cloud9 really do have what it takes to play 5v5 against top-tier Korean teams. It's just they can't do it as consistently as a team like Blue can.
Yeah, and they were at a deficit as well before that dragon fight. So really, really looking fantastic for Cloud9. And I think that a lot of this experience is really going to help all the North American teams coming through into next year and potentially, being able to train better and learning about their team as well, because Worlds is always fantastic for that.
Yeah, and a lot of the games have been revolving around these dragon fights, and it's like pretty much like the first team to win a dragon fight is going to be the team that wins. And unfortunately, C9 lost that game, but they did win that dragon fight, and like a lot of teams have been putting a lot of focus into those dragon fights. So I think that's something to look forward to.
Yeah,
and something to look over in like the coming games.
I also think that it's a really fun meta as well, because it does mean that we get team fights at around 10, 16 minutes, and each time we sort of know that there's going to be like an exciting point in these matches. So I think it's really, really, really cool. We got to bring back the fact that people are going for Dragon at 3 minutes. We got to bring that back.
Yeah,
back in the season 1.
That's a bit of a different thing, which we don't have time to get into right now, unfortunately. But definitely something we can talk about moving through as we probably move towards the finals.
Yeah, that's true. But that is going to bring us to our third play. Let's have a look at that one. Bring it up onto our screen. It is of course EDG versus Starhorn Royal Club, and the Uzi show begins here. Beautiful shockwave as well.
So the most important thing to realize of what's happening now, this is actually a full v5 that's Starhorn Royal Club decided to go into. The shockwave there really chunks down the 2 carries, so Korn did a really nice job just doing damage, and EDG kind of realized a little too late that Nami is way too far forward. Uzi opens up on him, gets a kill, and then it's just clean up duty for Twitch here, and this is what, for me, why Royal is such a scary team. They are not afraid to go in.
Oh, hell no.
At all, especially Uzi. He's the one leading the pack. Gets a quadra kill here at 14 minutes, which just snowballs. I think he went something like 16-1-4 that entire game. This game had 22 kills in it. Uzi participated in 20 of them.
And that was his first kill, was the beginning of this play as well. And Mikiwa, you did mention something to me earlier about this play. If we have a look at his mana right now, it's completely gone.
Yeah, so his mana was actually empty at the start of the fight. He used his invis, which is depleted the rest of it. Right now, he's getting kills, and his dangerous game passive is actually stacking up. Not his passive, his mastery, sorry. And he's getting more mana for the rest of his kills here.
Yeah, and let's just clean up that flash as well. That is just so slick. It's something you noticed at Atlas when we kind of went through the play. Korn actually managed to flash in so Twitch didn't get slowed, and that was able to clean up as well, which was real nice from Korn.
Yeah, and making sure that they channel all of their kills onto Uzi, their killing machine.
Yeah, that was the protect the Uzi comp as well. That was like all shields plus a Twitch, and it definitely worked.
I would definitely put that in the pros column as far as team comps that have done good. Well done. Yeah. Starhorn.
And again, like, you have to be so afraid when you play this team because they will go in on you at a moment's notice. This was the game where, you mentioned Barons before almost jokingly. There was a 20-minute Baron attempted in every single one of these games, I think. They just wanted to go.
Yeah, that's because Chinese teams just want to battle. And if there's a big pink monster, they're going to battle it if it's going to be there. So that's definitely exciting. But let's go into our top 2 play.
Yeah, we're at number 2.
Very excited. And speaking of Baron,
oh man,
this is going to be Najin Whiteshield having a bad time.
And this teleport, watch what Gorilla does here. He Aqua Prison's expecting Rise to come because Gogoing's actually coming off dying and completely mind games Najin Whiteshield here. They're still under this Baron, but Gogoing's like midway through to walking towards this Baron. Carl comes in here, knocks Zephyr back in basically to make sure he's out of position. There's a flank from behind there as Cool rotates in on Zed, and it's just an absolute whitewash here from OMG at this point. And this is what makes this team scary to me, is that they are just so good at fighting you.
Yeah, and they have absolutely no fear as well. They're not intimidated by any other team. Of course, Najin Whiteshield managed to, get a little bit of extra respect, you could say, in the group stage, and teams looked like they were playing a little bit less aggressively against them, especially in the first matchups that they had. So, man, OMG just looked so massive in that and just no fear at all.
Such a sick mind game from Going as well with that teleport. We've seen a couple of them at Worlds as well where people have cancelled teleports around big objectives and then teams have just been like, oh, I'm worried, and then they cancel them and then they all lose.
And what he did there was when he cancelled it, Najin Whiteshield actually thought he was in base when he was actually a lot closer than that. So he did arrive in time for the fight. They took Baron assuming it was 4v5. Unfortunately, he came too quickly and he cleaned them up. So yeah, it's a really good mind game by him.
Yeah, it was
Not to mention the Jana Monsoon getting everybody grouped up and inside the Baron pit, taking extra Baron damage and also putting them in range of Ryze's ridiculous ult AoE damage.
Yeah, like, I mean, that was just like a perfect collapse from LMG around that fight. You generally want to have your carry towards the back of your team, but Zephyr was caught basically at the front of the Baron, trying to get out, and he gets collapsed on by 3 people, and then we've got going and Loveling on the other side, collapsing on the rest of them, plus he stole the Baron as well, so
Yeah.
just a great fight from LMG, and really showcasing how strong they looked in that series.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. But we do have our longest play, our top play, and our most heartbreaking play.
This
to
was
bring
quite,
to you
this was
right
quite
now.
the moment, I think.
This was beautiful.
It
and
was,
so
really.
sad at the same time.
So Cloud9, as you probably can tell from the goal there, they're horribly far behind in this game. But like killed Data is caught completely out of position. Great equalizer there as well to clean up Death, who just gets eaten alive. Acorn now, you know, he's a big tanky Maokai, but cannot fight against all that damage. And Cloud9 think, okay, we're going to try and push it. We've got to do damage. We just got 3 picks. But again, they're really, really far behind. And we're going to push down this 2-tier turret. We're going to push down the Inhibitor turret. And then it gets really interesting there, I think, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't. There's a beautiful 3-man bubble, so that's a little bit of time taken off Samsung Blue. And this is just Cloud9 saying, look, we have to do this now, otherwise we're going to lose this game.
Yeah, and this is the thing for me, is if we pause here, Cloud9 have basically got a decision to make right now. And it's whether or not we need to win the game. There's a bunch of stuff to consider. Their bottom inhibitors pushing down, their super minions parading into their base. They're horribly far behind on gold. And there's about 20 seconds left on the rest of the key carries from Samsung Blue. Now, we obviously know, we'll see what happens here in a second. If you've seen the game, you obviously know. My issue, though, is that if Cloud9 wanted to do this, they needed to decide they were going to win the game after they got the first pick. And it feels like to me that they got this far and went, I think we want to try and win. But as you mentioned, that 3-man bubble, that actually buys Samsung Blue enough time to come in and make sure they clean out this game here. And it's so awkward from this point. There's no minions left to tank. There's 2 caster creeps left ready to go. If they gotten that tower quicker or killed hard under that tower, they might have bought themselves more time. They do the right thing. They focus down whoever they can because they need to get kills because the respawn timers are a little too low. But Cloud9 here, they throw everything at this Nexus, all 5 of them, and it's unfortunately not enough.
Yeah, and Sneaky just gets destroyed by Dade when he did immediately come back up as well. And that's what Yasuo is fantastic at as well.
I mean
he
Twitch
can just,
Yasuo, man, there's just so much damage.
And there's just minions streaming in as well, so you just could E around everywhere. And Mikiwa, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, like there's a lot of little things that they could have done to, you know, fix that up and to maybe win the game. But in reality, how many base races do you get to practice? How many times do you get to practice that? Like, how do you know what to do in every single situation? It's basically impossible. So, you know, they did what they thought was the best and it didn't work.
Yeah.
You know, if Samsung Blue were in their shoes, they might have done the same thing. Like, it's hard to call. It's just, I think that's just a really unlucky play rather than, you know, a bad play or a good play by them.
Yeah, I think it was the right play. It was the desperation move. And I mean, there are things that they could have mechanically changed, I guess, in order to, you know, up their chances. And that Nexus was on like this tiny amount of health at the end there as well. So only would have been a few more auto attacks. But I think it was well played by Samsung Blue more than it was a misplay here by Cloud9, just because they managed to clean them up so effectively before that Nexus went down.
And just buying enough time between the members of Samsung Blue that were still alive just made such a difference there.
Yeah, it certainly did. And it was just a heartbreaking moment, of course. It was the 4th game between Cloud9 and Samsung Blue. Samsung Blue had come back that 2nd and 3rd game, so was match point. And what a way to end the series as well.
Not the most dramatic end to a game, I don't think it was so far, but it's probably the 2nd.
What would you say the most dramatic end?
Fnatic OMG.
Oh, yeah. One auto attack's probably going to do it. Golly gee, there's also a little bit of contention on that one as well, as far as what was going on. There's sort of things with equalizers and home guard boots that I don't quite understand. But we will see. Of course, when things get to that point where it's like, oh, should home guards be broken? You know you've had a pretty epic ending to a match.
Hey, man. The game's coded in a way. Code is law.
Damn right it
Pretty
is.
much decided that game.
And you can't argue with it, really. So I just think it's really, really exciting that you have to get down to that level in order to like work out whether it's like close enough. Oh, man, it's just ridiculous. But we are going to jump straight over to our featured player. Let's get him up onto your screen right now. It is, of course, going to be Pawn. And this is because he picked Jace, and Benji needed us to put him on the screen. Of course, Ryan Benji being a massive Jace fan, but Pawn played so fantastically in that match against TSM and up against Bjergsen as well, who has just been praised as this mid laner, and he was playing well. He just got schooled.
Yeah, Pawn's just so good. It's dumb. Like, he plays almost every champion in the book. He's like happy on Yasuo, he's happy on Zed, he's happy on Fizz, he's happy on Jace. Like, he's played almost every type of champion. The thing for me is the Samsung Light, we keep talking about it, their team fight is really what sets them apart as a team overall for me. And Pawn is such a big part. No matter what champion he's playing on, he's always in the right spot for a team fight, and he's always just doing the most he can, whether it's peeling for his carries or dealing damage and jumping on the enemy carries. Like, his Fizz game as well in that same series against TSM was just dumb.
It was beautiful to watch. And the fact that he knew almost down to the numbers, like it came down to attack speed in his 1v1 against Bjergsen, and man, it's just ridiculous.
He's just so good. I mean, I was on the cool train, I guess, when we started this off, but Pawn is easily the best mid laner in this tournament.
Yeah, and it is just the numbers, but if you think about it, right? If the situations were reversed and Bjergsen was on Fizz, do you think he would have been able to kill Pawn?
I'm not sure. I don't think it's fair to ask me that question. What do you think, Julian?
Maybe not. Like, again, Bjergsen's really good, but Pawn has just played out of his mind the entire tournament.
Yeah.
Like, he's almost like everyone's focusing on Imp and Dandy and how good they are, but at the end of the day, for me, Pawn is the most impressive member of Samsung Light at this Worlds.
Definitely.
I definitely think so as well. And the thing that's really impressed me about Pawn is his ability to pick with his head as well at the beginning of the game. Of course, a lot of players have been called out for, high picking Talon in their last matchup seems to have been something that people have been saying is not necessarily the best decision, but Pawn just seems to always come up with exactly the right champion to play at exactly the right time.
It just doesn't matter what he's playing. He's played Talon as well, and destroyed people with it. Like, it's just dumb. This guy plays everything.
And that was actually famously against Faker as well, wasn't it? Where he picks...
he's played it in this tournament.
Faker picks Talon into him, and then he picks Talon into Faker and just wrecks him. And
Pawn seems to like doing that. He again in the TSM game, Bjergsen played Zed twice. He beat him on Jace to start things off, which was hilarious to me. And then's like, actually, I'll pick the real cannon and plays Fizz, which is even better.
Yeah, and that was just a beautiful game to watch. Well, it was beautiful if you're a fan of Samsung White, not so much if you're a TSM fan. But let's move on. We've got our featured champion. We've got actually our second, featured player.
He's kind of a featured champion. We could make Uzi a champion.
I just didn't want to talk about Uzi just because it was so filthy.
Oh, man.
Oh, my goodness. Just ridiculous.
So good. And
ridiculous.
He was this good last year. Just like everyone kind of said, oh, he's like the Faker of AD carry. Like, he was the person that might finally get to carry the mantle of like best AD carry to ever play the game. Didn't quite live up to the expectations last year, but this year with a new, a remade team, similar/same brand, but still different. The guy's just insane. Like, he is the most mechanically proficient AD I've ever seen play.
Yeah, and what were your impressions, Minkuel, of Uzi throughout that series? Because it was just ridiculous to watch EDG just get schooled.
Yeah, definitely. It was not just Uzi, but the actual champion, Twitch. I think he is like one of the champions that are coming up right now. He's the one like solo carrying games, especially with the Asian teams. They really love that pickup because they like their lane switches. They like getting Twitch through the lane phase, getting into late game, and just letting him carry. He just does too much damage. I think he'll get a nerf soon.
Yeah, but Uzi's played like Caitlyn in this tournament. He's played Vayne in this tournament. Like, this guy's dumb. Like, he's so aggressive. Like, every single time you lane against Uzi, it just feels like it must be horrifying to play against because he never ever lets you get away with a free CS ever. He's just always in your face, trying to kill you, trying to do damage. He's just played so well.
Yeah, and it's also on champions that are tending to hyperscale as well. So you've got
he's
champions like Vayne and Twitch where even in the laning phase, he's wrecking them.
He's like the only person I've ever seen consistently take Twitch and Vayne into 2v2 lanes and win. Yeah. He's just like, no, I don't want to lane swap, I'm going to kill you. Like, not to mention his Lucian is disgusting as well, which he hasn't even played that much of because it doesn't suit the team as well. They need that hard to carry, like Minky was saying.
Well, he played that in their first match, I believe it was, against...
he plays it, don't worry about it.
Against CDG, and that was disgusting. That was either picked or banned away from Uzi for the rest of that series.
Yeah, and Lucian's such a good Chinese AD carry as well because, again, they love to fight 3v3, 4v4, 5v5 team fights. Lucian's the kind of champion that just carries you through really big, extended team fights and skirmishes because he's highly mobile, does a ton of upfront damage as well, and you can snowball through team fights. Like, Lucian is the China was famous for playing Ezreal a long time ago, and Lucian kind of feels like an upgraded, more aggressive Ezreal. So it's perfect for the way they like to play.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful. Plus, his positioning in team fights as well, like Minky Well, it's just absolutely
He's just so good.
insane.
I'm gonna need to cut it because I'm gonna not stop talking about how good this guy is. He's
All right,
so
let's move on
good.
then. Let's move on. Stuff it. Let's go to our feature champion. It is, of course, going to be Zed, and I'm so excited to talk about this guy. There are some incredible Zed players in this tournament. We've spoken about Porn, we've spoken about Bjergsen, but it's almost everyone's shown up here and just demonstrated some ridiculous Zed. We saw Xpeke, of course. He was one of our top players coming through, and his was just fantastic.
Cool's played it. I'm pretty sure Korn's played it as well. I think almost every laner has played it at some point. I think for me the biggest thing is that Zed's actually does not have the highest win rate. I don't know the exact stats, but he's not doing that well as a champion. And I think for me, and you guys play a lot of Zed, I know Mickey as well on your team. Zed feels like he's just been figured out. Like we've got exhaust on the support, usually a second exhaust on the mid laner as well. QSS, Zhonya's, you're done. You just can't do anything. Like if you can't jump on either carry and you can't split push, you just can't do anything.
Yeah. Well, he is picked for his versatility, and he's good like at level 6. In the early game, getting those dragon pressures. He's a good assassin. He's good at roaming. He's quite versatile. So he's not a bad pick. He can get through any lane phase as well, relatively well. So he's more like the new safe pick, the new Orianna, except he has an escape, so it's a bit harder to kill as well. Yeah,
that's true. And it's a bit interesting thinking of an assassin as being this safe pick, especially a melee assassin, although he does have a lot of AoE tools. I just find it really interesting considering the fact that everyone's been picking him, but he hasn't been doing so well, but that hasn't been stopping people from picking him. I don't know what people are waiting for here.
I think everyone just knows what to do now against Zed. He's been in the meta for ages. Mid laners have trained him up. They know how to play against him now. It's just a matter of he's been figured out, and people need to stop picking Zed because he keeps losing.
Well, admittedly, we saw him keep losing in the TSM versus Samsung White matchup, which is something that everyone was basically expecting anyway. I don't know whether that's something that you can really blame the Zed on, but
even in the EDG Royal Series, I think Cool played him. No, not Cool. Unstoppable played him, or you played him twice at least and lost both times, I think, as well. And he's a fantastic Zed player. It's just a matter of his skill ceiling's really high, but you have a very set win condition when you play Zed that you have to split push basically once you hit 15, 20 minutes, and teams just know how to beat that now.
Yeah.
Unless you're really far ahead or you're an exceptionally good Zed player and can actually navigate late game team fights, he's just not the same pick he was before.
Which is a little bit depressing because he's also super fun to watch.
Where's the Orianna, man? That's my question. No one's playing Orianna. She's drawing some bans on certain players, but Fizz is good too. We've seen some really good Fizz players. There's a reason people are playing Jace and stuff in this tournament. Zed's just not the same.
Not that
champion.
Jace isn't a standard pick in that mid lane. Of course, our production is being taken care of by Right Benji today, so we have to be very kind to Jace and not be too mean. But and we saw Jace actually beat the Zed matchup as well, so you could imagine that.
Yeah, what's going on there? If Jace is beating Zed in lane, you probably stop picking Zed.
Well, Jace is probably the best right now.
I don't know. Ari's seeing a lot of play as well. There's just, for me, the very versatile and very safe, as Minky said, but it feels like there's better champions.
I think everyone is just figuring out the meta now.
Yeah.
Because 4.15 is a very difficult patch for everyone to play on, especially since they all moved to Worlds.
Yep.
They didn't have time to figure it out in solo queue, and 4.15 it doesn't even exist anymore. It's been patched out. So they're developing their own meta during Worlds, which is very interesting to watch.
Yeah, it's awesome actually. That's my favorite thing about Worlds. It's just this month-long tournament. Players they have long series as well. The entire knockout stage is best of fives. You have a lot of time to figure out what you want to do as a team, figure out the enemy team, and definitely the metagame of Worlds, as Minky said, is evolving throughout the tournament as well. And teams are getting better. On day 1 of groups versus day 2 of groups, every team looks significantly better on day 2. And we're up to the semifinals now. Teams are going to start looking even better.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I like how the mini meta is developing as well. But we do have to, of course, move on. We are going to let our friend Minky Well take us through a few pointers just quickly about his favorite champion, Irelia, there in that top lane, just so that we can have some lessons here in solo queue. So take us through, and then we'll ask you for 3 points to work on for people playing Irelia, because I find it really, really difficult. I never know when to go in.
Okay.
Ever.
Okay, so Irelia is one of those champions that can beat any matchup. Irelia can pretty much win any lane. If
I
you
think
play
I'm
her,
proof that that's untrue.
if you play her correctly, of course. She's really good against Ryze. She's got good gap closers. She can beat many bruisers. She's not that great against Renekton, but thank God he's gone now.
I'm pretty sure no one's great against Renekton.
Yeah. Irelia is really good to gank for. She's got good sustain, so she can't be pushed out of lane. So she's one of those all-round top champions that you can beat anyone with. I like to max E on her, the stun.
That's
So-
what Wicked
Yeah,
does.
it's
as
kind
well.
of, that's the new hotness now, I feel like.
Yeah.
It's, good amount of burst, good CC for when your jungler comes, as you mentioned. It just makes you feel, like, powerful in trades. Whereas before you're like, try and hit you with
Yeah.
hit 10 style, hope I get there. Yeah.
Yeah. The fall off is obviously her late game. She's not as strong as a lot of the other champions because of her base stat, which is the W. It doesn't scale at all into the late game. It actually gets worse as the game goes on. But yeah, other than that, she's quite strong. She has good sustain, especially with her ultimate. Don't underestimate the healing that the R gives, the ultimate, the Transcendent Blades. If it goes through champions, it actually heals you more. So in a team fight, when you're hitting 5 people with your ultimate, you actually heal quite a substantial amount.
Not to mention the fact that your Ionian Fervor, of course, your passive gives you so much tenacity in those team fights.
Yes, that too. 3 points.
Yeah, let's give Minky's 3 points for
3
Irelia
points.
if you guys
Yeah.
want to
Okay.
take her in a battle and solo queue in the
Okay.
top lane.
So the first point is you should max E if you want to burst and max W if you want to sustain in lane.
Mm-hmm.
And what are some
Um,
examples quickly of lane matchups where that, might be different?
Okay, so
So give me one W matchup
Yeah.
and one E matchup.
okay, so an E matchup would be against Malphite. You're not going to auto attack very much against Malphite. You attack too slow. Max E.
Mhm.
Do lots of magic damage. Get through his armor and shred him down with the rest of your kit and your jungler's help as well. Maxing W, you'd be against someone who maybe pokes you down a bit. Someone like Lulu or Ryze.
Yep.
You could really max your W, use it under tower to heal up. Wait for your jungler to come as well. Same deal. Don't be afraid to use your Q because it refunds mana.
Mm-hmm.
So it does refund half your mana. So you end up spending around 35 mana just to Q a creep. That's fine. Use that to farm on the turret, which is very handy as Irelia. And of course, don't underestimate the healing that your ultimate gives.
Yeah.
Especially in team fights or in duels as well. Like,
Yeah.
I can't count. I have to admit something. The only champion I can play in top lane is Irelia. I can't play anything else. Maybe Ryze, because as you mentioned, it's pretty easy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so just being able to duel people with Irelia is always surprising. Go in, use all your buttons, and just 1v1 where you've got sustain and they don't have as much. Like, your ultimate brings you out of so many situations where you would not have been able to win a 1v1 or a 2v2.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Miguel. Of course, we do have to move on to our predictions phase, but that was some definitely transcendent advice.
Ooh, that's funny.
I got an.
I hope you guys could hear. That was an audible face palm. I hope you guys could hear that. That was beautiful.
Oh, I feel fantastic. I feel absolutely fantastic. We are going to go into our predictions for our semi-finals. It is, of course, going to be Samsung Blue first up versus Samsung White, and this is the matchup that everyone's been talking about. I'm really excited, though, that it's not going to be the grand final, because I'm happy that it's going to be at least a cross-region grand final. But let's start talking about these guys, because, of course, Samsung White are the dominating team against anyone else, but in amongst the Samsungs, the Blues tend to come out first up.
Yeah, especially in semifinals, which is kind of the joke. Seriously, that's the joke everyone's been making. Is that, yeah, you guys are pretty good at losing the Blue in semis. They're like,
Yeah.
don't want to lose.
So I think that Blue definitely have the advantage over White in terms of how they've been going, how their records have been going. But I think in Worlds and during Worlds, I feel that White has developed more as a team than Blue has. They've adjusted more to the meta. They're better. They look stronger. They've been playing better. They've been drafting better even. They're not as cocky. I really feel that White can take Blue out in the semis. Yeah.
And if you as well put into context, I guess, the fact that White was against TSM and they made TSM, if I was to be blunt, look like trash in those first 2 games. They did. It was really difficult to watch, to be perfectly honest. I was thinking that maybe it should be made illegal to have games like that because it was just horrible. Whereas Samsung Blue against Cloud9 looked like they had opportunities to turn games around almost throughout the series, and it was more closely matched in my opinion.
Yeah, that's kind of the story of the 2 Samsung teams at this tournament, it seems like. White have just looked unstoppable, and Blue have looked really strong, but definitely mortal.
Yeah,
in certain
faltering a
situations.
little bit.
So for me, in this matchup, first of all, I have two different predictions for the finals. I'll be happy with White versus Royal or EDG. Oh, sorry, not EDG. OMG versus Blue.
You wish that it was
Yeah, I
EDG.
wish it was EDG. They were one pick to win, and now they can't even make it to the semifinals. Whatever. So for me, those would be the closest, most entertaining matches. So I'd like to see White versus Royal and Blue versus OMG. That being said, I think White do have the edge here. Like Mickey said, I think it'll be 3-2 White in that semi.
3-2. What do you think as far as the scoreline, Minky?
CLG. No, yeah, definitely. I think it'll be 3-1 or 3-2.
3-1 or 3-2. I'm predicting a 3-2 as well, actually, in White's favor, because I think that they can turn it around against Blue. I reckon they can take it. But let's have a look at the Chinese side of the bracket. Of course, OMG against Starhorn Royal Club, and Starhorn, man, they looked fantastic against EDG, but OMG just made that game against Najim Whiteshield look easy. So where do we stand after this? Minky Well, take us through. What do you think?
I really think OMG are the better team out of the two, but coming in, OMG did come third in the LPL, so I'm not too sure how that would go, but I'm definitely going for OMG to win.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the Minky train here as well for some reason. I don't know why.
On the Minky rail?
Yeah. But yeah, OMG for me are the team that just look like not just a better team. I feel like they have more momentum here. And they just, if anyone's going to win a long, high-pressure series like a semi-final and make it, I think it's going to be OMG. 3-1 over Royal is my prediction there, which unfortunately sets up a final I didn't want, but, I can't win everything.
Yeah, it's a little bit interesting to talk about as well because, of course, OMG are this team that doesn't necessarily pride themselves on their consistency. So it makes it very, very difficult to predict what's going to happen here because I personally have no idea because Starhorn, just looked brilliant in their match, and Uzi didn't look like he was going to let up as well.
Yeah,
I mean, the Vayne pick may not have worked out quite as well, and they did have some falterings, but that guy just looks so strong, whereas OMG came together as an entire team, especially some could say that Going was playing well.
Yeah.
But as far as the AD carry matchup is concerned, I mean, I think that's where there might be a little bit of an
I
issue.
think that's kind of there's two different sides of the map almost in this matchup that's important. The three members that need to carry OMG are basically the jungle and their two solo laners. So going in top, leveling in the jungle, and cool in the mid lane. If they show up and play well, then they carry Sun and Cloud through these team fights. And when they're fighting, it doesn't matter how far behind your AD carry is, because he's just going to be there helping do consistent damage, and we'll go from there. But for Royal, it's absolutely the bottom lane with Uzi and Zero likely highly outclassing Sun and Cloud here. So and then Insec as well, when he's playing well, his team looks really strong. So it's kind of like the two junglers are the most important elements of this matchup for me, but it's kind of like the top half of the map versus the bottom half of the map here.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And of course, Cloud coming in was a sub actually, and they switched him in, and now OMG looks like this unstoppable force. Is he the catalyst for this, or is it just the fact that they have some change and then for some reason OMG figure out how to play the game again?
Like Data, to his credit, like a great player. Definitely, I've heard stories about him basically coming in to help Sun. They were friends, and they needed new support because Cloud was having some problems with the team. So they brought him in, but he just wasn't playing nearly as well as Cloud was. And I think they realized that, if we're going to have our best shot of winning this tournament, we need to get our best player back in, even if, they don't always agree, potentially, when they play each other. But, if they've sorted that all out, OMG are going to look fantastic because their biggest weakness is absolutely their bottom lane right now.
Plus, with the addition of the main protagonist from the Final Fantasy series, everything's going to go a whole lot better, am I right? But that is going to bring us to the end of the show. I do apologize for bringing it off on that note. But this has, of course, been the World's Rundown Under, the Oceanic view of what our world's experience was. I'm, of course, Max Atlas Anderson, proudly joined by Anne Minky Wild Trin and Julian Pastry Time Carr. And I just want to thank, of course, Riot Benji as well, on that production desk, working so hard, audibly face-palming at terrible jokes and shaking his head currently because we are so incredibly embarrassing sometimes. But guys, do not forget to tune in to the semifinals, which are going to be starting at 7 p.m. on Saturday. That's going to be in Seoul, Korea, and that's going to, of course, start off with Samsung Blue versus Samsung White. It is going to be incredible. And we will see you next week for our final episode. Of course, episode 5 will be our final one. So thank you very much for watching, guys, and we'll see you next week.